What I will say is my journey with angels has been my initiation into doing this work. I do not take this lightly. I'm very, very grateful for the path that I've been on with them because ultimately it has strengthened my connection with God, with spirit, with myself, and it's led me on the path of my womb to the goddess, the rose lineage, the Mary Magdalene lineage, and the feminine mysteries. And it's just been such a magical divine journey that has unfolded over the last 10 years, that I would say. So let's start at the beginning. I was 19 and my boyfriend at the time was a medium, and he came from a family of mediums, and he taught me all about spirit guides, angels, how to connect with spirit. And ever since then, I was always pretty open to it. I would read books about angels. My mum would buy me books about crystals. And at this time, this was like pre TikTok. So crystals weren't really popular. Spirituality definitely wasn't popular. So when I used to tell people about my connection with spirit, I was that weird crystal girl that would talk to angels and nobody really got it. And that's okay. I spent a lot of my 20s very misunderstood for that reason. I'm glad that it is more known because it has been quite difficult to claim this side of me because it's been considered woo-woo. But what I will say is that angels are so real. They're always with you, even if you feel so alone. Even the times where you're crying on your bathroom floor, heartbroken, they are with you always. And I've always found comfort in knowing that. So during my 20s, because I was quite open spiritually, I would experience paranormal activity, I would say. I could communicate with orbs, I would receive signs, synchronicities, some strange things would happen. Not anything that I was scared of, but where I was just quite open, it was just natural for me to connect in that way. And I always found it very comforting that I had that. Like I said, I've been in some very difficult situations in my life where I've been at rock bottom and I felt really alone, but I've always felt the love from my angels and my spirit team, and at times that's really helped me through. So when I went through a really bad breakup in my late 20s, that was when the angels started to show up more for me, I would say. And I started to really build my connection and my communication with them. I basically have my own language with them. And I remember I was crying on the phone to my mum in the middle of the city in Vancouver. I was just going through a really difficult time. I was like crying on the phone to her. I really missed her. Couldn't even hug my mum. I was going through like a really bad breakup. It was savage. And there was like this feather that floated next to me. So I just always knew that they were with me and they were around me. That breakup actually woke me up spiritually. Like, yes, I've always been quite spiritual throughout my 20s, but then I was really cracked open during this period. And that was when I started to read books around past lives, what happens when you die, because where I was so heartbroken, I was literally asking the questions like, why me? Why do I have to go through this? I don't deserve this. So I had to seek for a deeper meaning as to why I was experiencing that. And that led me to read Many Lives, Many Masters by Brian Weiss. And that book really did change my life. When I read that book, I was immersed into past life regression. And I basically did one off of YouTube and I had an out of body experience from it, which I want to talk about because it's very significant with the path that I've been on with the angels. So this isn't something that is the norm for me. This is literally the only time I've done this, but I was doing a hypnosis and all of a sudden I was rising out of my body, and as I was looking down, I was holding my hand out and there was a man covered in fire, and the vibe that I got was to help him up, and I was meant to help other people up. That was the vibe that I got. Obviously it shook me up and I come out of it and I was like, what the fuck just happened? And I tried to find out what dimension this guy was from and who it was, but I could never find any details on that situation. I had to let it go because I couldn't make sense of it in that moment, until 2 years later, I lost my job. I was at a time in my life where I was very, very lost and stuck. I was experiencing my Saturn return. If you know, you know. absolutely savage, questioning my whole entire existence. I literally had just lost my job, and then I came across an ad on Instagram that said all about angelic Reiki, how to connect with angels, ascended masters. And this had been a journey that I'd been on and I had immersed myself into from reading books about past lives, ascended masters, all of this spiritual stuff. So I felt like I was being called. I just knew it was for me. And without hesitation, I booked onto it. I drove up to Liverpool in my little Fit 500. It literally took me like 5 hours. And when I got there and I went into the studio where I was going to have my training, my attunement, the lady had an altar and she had loads of angel cards laid out. And on one of the angel cards, I kid you not, I wish I had it with me so I could show you. Maybe I'll put it on Instagram when this goes out so you can see the card. But it was basically this archangel covered in fire, and it said on there, Archangel Uriel, share your light with the world. And in that moment, it was like a full circle moment. Everything made sense. And I'm a big believer that when you follow your intuition and you follow the niggle, the actions that you take in the moment do not necessarily make sense. It's always when you look back. So me having that out of body experience 2 years prior was my initiation into this work. And what I will say is during my attunement, that was my time to be like, okay, wow, this is not in my head, because there is times where spirituality is deemed as woo woo. I'm like, is this in my head? Like, am I making this up? Like these signs, these synchronicities, like, am I going crazy? That was my confirmation and my validation that no, I am truly supported and it's not in my head. Angels are so real. And something that I really took away from my attunement was that your words and your thoughts are so fucking powerful. And ever since then, it just changed my life, because that was when I was really consistent with my own self practice, my own energy healing on myself. And I was able to move through so much dense, stagnant energy that I was holding on to. And I realized as well during my training was that I suppressed my intuition a lot. So I think this is very normal with people who had a difficult childhood or people that have been in narcissistic situations, is that they are actually very intuitive, they're very empathic, they're very psychic, but because they're around people who dim them down, and I would always have like dreams about people cheating on me with the exact person that they cheated on me with. Obviously, I had no evidence, no proof. This was just a feeling, a knowing, and I didn't know that that was my psychic abilities actually warning me. And when I would confront these situations, because there was no logical evidence, these people that were close to me would say, you're crazy, you just think this because of what you've been through in the past. And then I was like internalizing that, and I was thinking, okay, well maybe I am crazy. Like, I don't understand why I've got this feeling, but maybe this is my own insecurities. But honey, no, I was right. I was right the whole time. And I think because I was gaslit into thinking that it was in my head, it really affected my self-trust, and it really made me doubt myself, and it really did dim down my gifts. And I'm 30 years old and I'm only just being able to claim these gifts because of the suppression that I've experienced with my relationships and the people that I surrounded myself with. So yeah, you're not crazy. You do have an inner knowing. Trust that. A lot of women suppress their psychic abilities and their sixth sense because we live in a patriarchal world that has us so far disconnected from this power and this inner knowing. And they really do benefit from women not trusting themselves and seeking outside of themselves for validation. My angelic Reiki attunement really did change my life, but I did leave my attunement feeling very overwhelmed and very lost and stuck still. And it took me around 4 months of doing angelic Reiki on myself to actually finally start seeing shifts within my life. And it's funny because as I record this, I'm in Barcelona. 2 years ago, I was in Barcelona on a trip and I felt so activated while being here. And again, it was at a time where I was very lost and stuck in life. I'd just been attuned to angelic Reiki. I had an ecom business at the time selling lashes, and I was really gripping to that business because I'd spent 2 years of my life, I'd invested so much money into it, but it was leading me to burnout because I just wasn't passionate about it. I knew I wanted to be more of service. I knew I wanted to integrate my spirituality and help people. And I remember doing a Reiki healing on myself because I was feeling a little bit hungover. Oh, how times have changed. But I remember the angel showed me, like, you can have the life that you want, you can travel, you can make an impact, but you have to let go of your other business. And that was actually a decision that I'd been weighing up for a very long time. So when I was at the airport in Barcelona flying home, I actually changed my name on Instagram to Adele Angelic, and that was where Adele Angelic was born. So I've actually done a full circle. What I will say is I have been on such a journey with the angels, and now I'm here this time and I'm going around all the churches. I'm learning more about the history of the land. Everything is so angelic here, and it makes sense that I was brought here the first time, and that's where Adele Angelic was born. What I will say though is that working with angels, yes, it's a magical journey, but it has been deeply uncomfortable. Working with angels, they will literally put you through the toughest lessons, and there has been times where I've been like, what the fuck? I've literally done the things that you want me to do, and I'm in the fucking shit. I'm in the gutter. And at the time, I'm like, sometimes I ice them out and I'm like, I don't even want to talk to you. Like, what have you done? Like, what the hell? Why? Why do I have to go through this? But then when I start to see the lesson in it, I do start to laugh and I'm like, okay, I get it. Thank you. And I'm thanking them for the things that have happened. My angels do have banter, like the way that I connect with them, my communication with them, they send me jokes, and I just always laugh at them. Like, I love them so much that your angels are like your best friends when you know how to work with them and invite them in. But what I will say is that you don't have to be attuned to angelic Reiki to have a connection with your angels. Angels are so powerful, and ever since working with angels, I felt so protective. And ever since working with angels, I've felt so protected, guided, supported. And let's get one thing straight, okay? Working with angels isn't light and fluffy. Angels slay demons. As I said, yes, you will experience tough love from them and lessons that are very difficult in the moment, but it is all for your greatest good and your greatest potential. So it's really easy to call them in. They respect your free will. So unless you actually ask them, they're not going to intervene. So I literally just speak to them out loud as if they're my best friend. And, sometimes I'll say, oh, angels, can you help me find my keys? And, I'll find my keys, or I'll invite them in to, obviously, like, for bigger things, when I'm praying to them, when I'm praying to God, I'm calling in the things that I want, I'm asking them for support. If I'm navigating a difficult situation, I call them in. And when you have that relationship with them, as I said, you just never feel alone. You just have that trust in the unseen. And I really do believe a lot of people are missing that faith, are missing that trust, because there's so many women, especially, who are so bogged down and weighed down and crippled by this self-doubt, and I can relate because I've been there. But what I was missing was that connection with the feminine, with the unseen, because when you know how to co-create with the unseen, with your angels, with your spirit team, that is when miracles open up for you in your life. When you can tap into the God frequency, there is nothing off limits for you, literally nothing. The things that happen in my life are so out of the norm for the majority of people, but it's so normal for me because I know that I'm always taken care of, I'm always supported, and I'm just so grateful to be on this path with them. And as I said, anyone can have this, which is why I wanted to talk about it today. But there's so much that I can speak about with angels. There's honestly so many different types of angels. And if you do feel called to go deeper into this work with angels, all my links are below. It really is a magical journey when you start to open yourself up to the magic and the wisdom and the miracles that they have available to you. Like, they're so eager to work with us. I listened to a podcast the other day that said in a stadium of people, a football stadium of people, not one person will be praying to the angels and asking angels for help. And angels are messengers of God. They're doing God's work. So invite them in, start chatting to them, and let me know how you get on. Leave your angel encounters in the comments. I love listening to angel stories, because when I talk about the things that I do, like, I shamed the angels for a very long time. And I'm really sorry to them for doing that. But being here in Barcelona this time round, I've noticed how prevalent angels actually are. Like, they're in all the churches, and I feel really bad that I've suppressed that part of myself, but not anymore. Angels are the reason why I'm sitting here today, and I'm internally grateful to them with the path that they've put me on. Okay, I'm going to love you and leave you, but I hope you've enjoyed this episode today as much as I've enjoyed speaking about it, and I will see you in the next episode.